The descent was not supposed to happen. The ship had been calibrated for a simple orbit, a quick survey of the strange blue planet with its tangled weather systems and odd population density clusters. Instead, the stabilizers hiccuped, the guidance display flashed an angry red spiral, and the vessel spun down through the atmosphere like a dinner plate flung by an irritable god. The alien girl clutched the controls with trembling fingers, muttering a curse in her language that roughly translated to, "May the stars knot your shoelaces forever." She landed not with grace, but with indignity. The craft groaned against the forest floor, hissing and popping like a kettle left too long on heat. A cloud of smoke rose in lazy swirls, carrying the smell of burning circuitry and something that reminded her uncomfortably of roasted nuts. She unstrapped herself, ears twitching wildly, and staggered out into the air. Earth smelled thick, like soil had decided to hold a permanent grudge against nostrils. She coughed, spat, and checked her reflection on a fractured screen still hanging in the cockpit. Hair disheveled, cheeks smudged, ears stuck up like antennae caught in static. If her superiors could see her now, they would revoke her pilot badge and probably her dignity in one stroke. For days she kept to the shadows. The ship was beyond repair without parts she couldn't replicate, and the forest was no kind sanctuary. Strange buzzing creatures hovered and stung, their wings vibrating like miniature engines. Mammals with sharp teeth prowled at dusk. Once she nearly stepped on a snake, and the snake, equally startled, slithered away with what she swore sounded like an offended hiss. She survived on ration cubes that tasted vaguely like cardboard soaked in sadness. The cubes dwindled too quickly, leaving her stomach growling with a persistence that reminded her of the engines when they had failed. Caution dictated she observe the native inhabitants before making contact. So she crept toward the edges of their settlements, climbing onto rooftops and crouching behind dumpsters with an elegance that would have made her instructors proud, if not for the fact that she slipped on banana peels twice in the same night. The humans fascinated her. They gathered in herds around glowing screens, laughed too loudly at noises that didn't sound remotely funny, and filled their homes with small, four-legged creatures that either barked like alarms or purred like malfunctioning engines. Once she watched a man arguing furiously with a vending machine that refused to deliver his snack, as though the machine were a sentient enemy plotting against him. She made a note in her journal, "Humans. Emotional instability triggered by food denial." And yet, she found herself lingering longer than she should. One evening she crouched on a rooftop watching through the window of a house where a group of humans shared a meal. They passed bowls, traded stories, burst into laughter at odd intervals. She tilted her head, ears catching the warmth in their tones. It wasn't what she had been told. Her people's teachings had painted humans as brutal, selfish, forever reaching for weapons or conquest. But here was a family singing badly out of tune while washing dishes. Here was a child spilling juice and giggling like nothing mattered. Here was a grandmother scolding everyone with exaggerated gestures before sneaking a cookie herself. It was confusing, alarming even. Still, she kept her guard. Humans were unpredictable. They might smile one moment and bare teeth the next. She had no intention of being discovered, not until hunger made the decision for her. The moment arrived in the middle of a night. Her stomach growled so loud it startled a nearby raccoon into dropping its stolen sandwich. Desperation pushed her into the town streets, where lights buzzed and flickered overhead. She moved quickly, scanning for sustenance. A convenience store window displayed endless rows of brightly packaged items, but the doors glowed with electronic locks. She muttered, "Of course. Advanced species of chaos, but they secure their candy bars." She prowled down an alley and nearly collided with him, a human carrying a paper bag filled with groceries. They froze, staring at each other. Her first instinct screamed, "Run." His first instinct was apparently to juggle poorly because the bag slipped, spilling fruit and cans across the pavement. A pair rolled dramatically, bouncing once before escaping into the gutter. He blinked, then his gaze fixed on her ears. Long, tapered, twitching nervously like traitors to her composure. His mouth opened and she braced for the scream, the alarm, the chase. Instead, he said, So, are you here to abduct cows or just stealing pears?" Her jaw dropped. That was not on the list of possible outcomes. For 3 heartbeats, they stared at each other in awkward silence, broken only by the slow drip of milk leaking from a punctured carton. She should have fled. She should have vanished into shadows and never returned. Instead, something ridiculous happened. Her lips curved. A smirk, sharp and uncontrollable. He grinned as if he'd won some invisible contest. "Good, you've got a sense of humor. That means you'll probably let me pick up my groceries before vaporizing me." She tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. His voice was calm, almost playful. No panic, no aggression. Just a man crouching to gather his fallen fruit, muttering curses at a can of soup that rolled out of reach. When he straightened, he held out an apple toward her as though it were a peace treaty. Hungry. Her stomach betrayed her with a growl loud enough to answer for her. And for the first time since crashing onto this strange planet, she hesitated not out of fear, but because laughter threatened to escape her chest. The apple tasted like nothing she had ever known. Sweet, sharp, crisp. Its juice ran down her chin in a way both humiliating and glorious. She devoured it in 2 bites, ears twitching at the crunch. The human, Eli, he would later insist she call him, watched with a half-smile, as though feeding strange girls from dark alleys was the sort of thing that happened to him every Tuesday. He bent to pick up another can and muttered, "You know, usually when strangers eat my groceries they at least say thank you, or they rob me. You're really breaking tradition here." Her reply was garbled through a mouthful of apple core. He squinted. Was that your language, or did you just insult me and burp?" She swallowed with difficulty, coughed, then attempted the human phrase she had practiced while eavesdropping. "Thank you." The words came out flat, mechanical, as though spoken by a broken navigation system. He looked delighted. "Perfect. You sound just like my GPS when it tells me to turn left and I ignore it." She stared, baffled. "GPS? Little box that yells at me when I'm lost. You'd like it, bossy as hell." Her ears twitched, unsure if she should be amused or offended. Still, she followed when he motioned toward his apartment. She didn't trust him. Her people's warnings echoed in her skull, but she trusted hunger less. Besides, he carried the groceries like weapons of peace. Perhaps she could study him more closely, learn his patterns, find out if humans truly were the dangerous beasts she'd been told. The apartment smelled like burnt noodles and questionable cleaning habits. A small box in the corner blinked with colorful lights, humming softly. She narrowed her eyes, preparing for it to explode, but Eli waved dismissively. "That's just the Wi-Fi router. The only thing dangerous about it is how often it stops working during movie nights." She sat stiffly on the edge of his couch, while he rummaged in the kitchen. Her ears pivoted at every sound, the hiss of a pan, the beep of a microwave, the sudden thud of a spoon falling to the floor. He cursed at it like it had betrayed his family. Finally, he appeared with a steaming bowl of instant noodles. She leaned away suspiciously. "This kill." He grinned, only slowly through sodium overload. She frowned, not understanding, but the smell was rich and warm. She took a cautious bite, then another. Then she slurped the noodles with such vigor the broth splattered across her chin. He stared. She froze, embarrassed, but then he snorted laughter so loud she almost dropped the bowl. "Okay," he said between chuckles, "that was majestic. You're officially better at eating noodles than me." The night stretched on. She asked questions in halting words, pointing at objects. He answered with patience and sarcasm, often at the same time. She pointed at the glowing box on the table. "Television," he said. "What purpose?" "To rot our brains and teach us very important lessons. Like never trust a man in a hockey mask and always bet on the dog in a movie about sports." She blinked. "Dog is sport. Don't worry. You'll understand eventually, or you'll run screaming. Either way entertaining." At one point she asked about the small green plant on the windowsill. He sighed. That's Basil. He's my sixth attempt. The first 5 didn't make it. You could say I'm a serial herb killer. She tilted her head, puzzled. Then, catching the glimmer in his eyes, she laughed. It was sharp, surprised, as though laughter had been locked away for years and was only now fumbling its way out. Her ears twitched and folded down, betraying her mood. Eli pointed at them, amused. Those things are like mood rings. Do they go full satellite dish when you're mad? She stiffened. They are not dish. Sure, totally intimidating. Like 2 angry bread knives. Her indignation melted into reluctant amusement. Somehow his ridiculousness made the fear retreat, if only a little. Later, when she tried to curl on the floor, he shook his head. Couch. Trust me, you'll thank me in the morning. Or you'll stab me in my sleep, but hey, worth the gamble. She eyed him suspiciously. Why help? He shrugged, scratching his head. Honestly, you seem lost, hungry. And you didn't disintegrate me with laser eyes, so I figure you're not all bad. Her people had never described humans this way. Foolish, yes. Careless, yes. But reckless kindness, that was dangerous in its own right. She lay awake on the couch long after he had gone to bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above her. Her thoughts twisted like its blades. Humans were supposed to be monsters. Yet here was one who made jokes about plants and shared food with strangers. Here was one who treated her not like prey, not like a threat, but like someone. Her stomach was finally full. But another hunger stirred, quieter, stranger, the hunger to understand him. Morning arrived with a thud, literally, because Eli tripped over his own shoes on the way to the kitchen. She sat up on the couch, instantly alert, ears shooting upright like twin antennas trying to tune into chaos. He groaned from the floor, waving weakly. I'm fine. This is how I usually start my day. Concussion first, coffee second. She watched him with suspicion. You defective. Very, but mostly in the mornings. The smell of coffee filled the room, sharp and bitter. She squinted at the dark liquid he poured into a mug. Poison. Technically, yes, if you drink 12 cups. But for me, it's survival juice. He sipped, wincing with bliss. See, still alive, slightly jittery, ready to conquer emails. She didn't know what emails were, but judging by his tone, they sounded like enemies. Perhaps small electronic creatures. She made a mental note. Her stomach growled, betraying her again. He pointed at the fridge. Help yourself. Just don't eat the baking soda. That's not food. She opened the door cautiously, blinking at the bright light inside. Shelves stacked with items she didn't recognize. Bottles of strange liquids, cartons, jars. She sniffed one jar suspiciously. Sharp, sour. Weapon. He laughed. Pickles. Basically vegetables trapped in vinegar until they lose hope. The word meant little, but his tone made her ears fold in amusement. She selected bread instead, examining its texture like it might bite back. When she bit into it, her eyes widened. Soft, warm, safe. Food on this planet was dangerously comforting. Later, Eli sat her down with a notepad. Okay. Lesson 1, if you're going to hang around here, we need to work on language. Otherwise, you'll sound like an evil robot every time you talk. That's not technology, that's breakfast. It not function. Because you pulled its guts out. He threw his hands up. Oh great, now I'll never get my mediocre toast back. She tilted her head. Toast, important. Critical, he deadpanned. Civilizations have collapsed without it. Her ears flicked in amusement, but the moment didn't last. That evening, black vans rolled quietly down the street. Strange figures moved in shadows, carrying devices that scanned the air. Eli spotted them first through the blinds and cursed under his breath. He turned to her. Okay, so remember how I said humans weren't all bad? Well, I forgot to mention. Some of them are bad, and those are the ones with badges and clipboards. Her heart raced. They know. Maybe. Or maybe Mrs. Crenshaw has a side hustle as a government informant. She tensed, ready to flee, but Eli stopped her. Wait, if you run, they'll catch you. We need a distraction. She frowned. Distraction. Something stupid, really stupid, Lucky for you, that's my specialty. What followed was chaos dressed in comedy. Eli deliberately set off his smoke alarm with a burnt pan of popcorn, filling the apartment with acrid haze. The sprinklers activated, drenching everything. He slipped dramatically on the wet floor, shouting loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Help! The lasagna betrayed me." Agents pounding on the door hesitated. One muttered, "Lasagna." Meanwhile, the alien girl activated a small device from her uniform, something designed for reconnaissance. She placed it against the wall. It projected false heat signatures. Half a dozen moving bodies, as if the apartment were filled with people dancing the cha-cha. The agents grew confused. One peered at his scanner. "Sir, there are 12 life forms in there." "Impossible," another said. "Unless he's hosting a salsa class." In the smoke and chaos, Eli shoved her toward the back door. "Go, I'll cover you." She hesitated. "You risk life." He grinned, hair plastered wet across his forehead. "What's life without a little felony?" She darted into the alley, heart hammering. The night air bit cold against her skin. Behind her, Eli's shouts echoed as he continued his ridiculous performance. She scaled a fence with ease, ears twitching at the sound of approaching boots. She pulled a small sphere from her belt and hurled it onto the ground. Light burst upward, scattering into dozens of holographic projections of herself sprinting in every direction. Confused shouts followed. "Which one's real?" "Shoot them all." "Sir, they're running through walls." "Then shoot the walls." By the time Eli stumbled out of the building, drenched and coughing, she had already looped back to pull him into the shadows. His face lit up with relief. "See? I told you distractions work." She stared at him, breathless. "You fool." "Thanks, I practice." They moved together through the night, weaving between alleys, ducking behind dumpsters. She used her scanner to jam the agent's signals, while Eli insisted on throwing empty soda cans behind them as decoys. "Classic misdirection," he whispered proudly. She whispered back, "That noise only." "Exactly, they'll think it's us." "Genius." She rolled her eyes but let him continue. Against all odds, they reached the safety of the forest beyond town. There, surrounded by crickets and shadows, they finally stopped, both panting, both drenched. Eli leaned against a tree. "Okay, note to self. We need a plan. We can't just wing it every time the men in black show up." She frowned. "Men in black." "You'll see, I'll show you the movie. It'll feel like a documentary." She laughed, though the sound trembled with exhaustion. Then she grew serious. "Why you stay? You could leave safe." He looked at her with a mix of exasperation and warmth. "Because you're my friend. And friends don't let other friends get abducted by government nerds." Her chest tightened, a strange ache she couldn't name. Her people had told her humans were predators. Yet here was one, soaked and ridiculous, risking everything for her. The contradiction gnawed at her, but so did the warmth. For the first time, she didn't feel entirely like a fugitive. She felt chosen. They didn't stop running for days, though Eli insisted on calling it strategic cardio. They shifted from safe houses to abandoned sheds, from rooftops to underground laundromats where nobody questioned two soaked fugitives as long as they didn't break the dryers. The alien girl adapted faster than she expected. She learned to navigate human streets, how to buy food without triggering suspicion, and how to tolerate Eli's constant jokes, which turned out to be the hardest lesson of all. Everywhere they went, she used her devices to scramble surveillance drones. They zipped overhead like metal insects, searching, buzzing, but she flicked switches and the signals collapsed into static. Eli once saluted her after she shut down a drone mid-flight. "You're officially better at tech support than every call center I've ever phoned." Yet the chase wore on them. Sleep came in fragments. Meals were cobbled together from whatever Eli could sneak from grocery stores without looking suspicious. Once, when he returned with an entire frozen turkey, she stared at him flatly. "We, fugitives. Why carry bird corpse bigger than head?" He grinned, because it was on sale. But the laughter couldn't hide the truth. They were hunted, and sooner or later the hunters would catch up. One night, camped in the forest near the wreck of her ship, she confessed, "I cannot stay. My people search. If not find signal, they assume I dead, or worse, captured. They may destroy this world." Eli froze, marshmallow stick half raised to the fire. "Wait. You're telling me the fate of Earth depends on you sending your folks a quick, still alive text?" "Yes," she said simply. He dropped the marshmallow. "Fantastic. We're doomed by bad communication skills." The ship still sat broken among the trees, charred panels twisted, wires like vines. She had tried to fix it countless times, but the energy core remained useless. She crouched by it again, hands trembling. No power. Without no signal. Eli rubbed his chin. What about car batteries, extension cords, hamsters on wheels? Hamsters. Never mind. He tapped the hull thoughtfully. Okay, maybe we can't rebuild the engine, but we can fake a signal. You've got your gadgets right. Make some kind of interstellar voicemail. "Hey Mom, not dead, please don't nuke the humans." She blinked, then slowly smiled. Voicemail. The plan became ridiculous and brilliant. Together they cobbled a transmitter from scraps. Her shattered console, Eli's old stereo system, a car alternator he insisted he borrowed but definitely stole. Why? That's not technology, that's breakfast. It not function. Because you pulled its guts out. He threw his hands up. Oh great, now I'll never get my mediocre toast back. She tilted her head. Toast important. Critical, he deadpanned. Civilizations have collapsed without it. Her ears flicked in amusement.